Welcome back to the Wake Up Call. Welcome back, welcome back. Part two. Mr. Phil Call Jeffers of the Ministry of National Mobilization is in studio with us. We're talking about domestic violence, what is in place in the system to assist victims. The last time we were in session, last time we were here, we were talking about, well, the last talk segment, there's a part one, okay? We were talking about what is in place with the police, their responsibilities, and if it is that you go to the police, what are your obligations as an ordinary citizen? What can you do when you make, or what should you do when you make a report? So let's continue from that.
Right. So I just want to rehash that bit and indicate that you go to the station and you make your report. You ought to ask for the badge number so that in the event that you're not satisfied, you can take it, because there's a system in place that would, facilitate that process, so that it provides you as the person who's making the complaint to the police a safe haven per se, to know that, okay, your matter must be dealt with and there's a process that must be followed. So that is what it provides you with. Now, according to the Domestic Violence Act, Section 3, that delineates the duties of the police officer. And I just run through two or three points. It says the police has a duty to inform the victim and applicant of their rights at the scene of the domestic violence incident or when the incident is reported. 3.1b, the police has a duty to hand the victim a printed copy of the rights of the victim. Schedule 1 sets out a checklist of information regarding his or her rights. 1. Right to request the police assistance to protect you, and for police to provide information on how to obtain protection order. Then it also says that you have a right to request the police presence to take you to the place of safety or the home of the family member or a friend. If you think that you are not safe, you can ask the police to do that. According to the Act, the police has an obligation to ensure that that happens. The police to take the victim in need of medical assistance to the clinic or to a hospital. The police to inform the victim how to obtain the protection order from the court. And this case, I think, is the family court that is the one that will deal with that. And request the victim address not be disclosed. And inform how the abuser can be prevented from entering the shared household. So all of those are there. I mean, we don't have enough time this morning to go through all of them, but I just want persons to understand you have that right and the police have that obligation in ensuring that you are protected if you are a victim, or we prefer to say survivor.
And how do you guys step in?
Well, like I said, the process happened. The police is your first contact.
Yeah.
And once that happens, there's an entire system that is activated.
Yeah. What is that system?
The Gender Affairs Division within the ministry is contacted. Now, the Ministry of National Mobilization have a host of services that is offered with stakeholder partners as well. So once you've done the application or made the complaint to the police will then contact the Gender Affairs Division, because there's a domestic violence unit within the department, and they would then do the necessary. So if it is counseling that is required, if it's a referral that is required, there are some of the services I wouldn't be able to tell you, because it is not a one size fit all, because every situation is different. All right. So let's say you come in and you need a particular type of assistance. The ministry would use one of its...
Let me throw one out that I encountered something like this. A lady was with a young man. He was the provider for the home. He was abusing her. Call the police. Police come to talk to the man. The man come back. They're still there together. How do you guys play a role in that situation?
Okay,
now?
so, and that is interesting, because I also, and this is why I said earlier on, there's good and bad when persons talk about the police, all right? So in a situation like that, the police would have been called and asked to assist. The police would have done the necessaries. But the two parties decide that they're going back together. There's nothing that they can do at that point in time to prevent you from going back. That is your choice. Okay. If you want the system to work, you have to follow what it is that you're being told. All right? If it is that you're saying, well, he's the only breadwinner, me want nothing to do, and whatever else, then you're putting yourself back at risk of experiencing the same set of violence
but
again.
Sometimes it's also a psychological thing too.
Right.
In play. Sometimes persons don't have that willpower to,
Right. So that is why we're saying, if you go through the process, there's counseling that is provided that would help you to deal with that. If it is a situation, because there are safe houses around St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Obviously, I wouldn't be able to disclose that.
Yes.
Right? So if it is a situation you don't feel safe in your home, you just heard me read from the act that the police have a right to help you to get there. And how they're going to do that, it's not that police have a safe house to put you, but they go to the Ministry of National Mobilization, and then that process is activated where that is done. It may be a situation where it may be, they need just to get away from there. A system is there to help that. Like I said, I wouldn't be able to go through all of them because it's not a one-size-fits-all situation.
Okay, so that last point there, a system is there if they need to get away. If it is, because you're also saying that, okay, police, Ministry of National Mobilization, what if it happens on a weekend? Is there something more immediate?
Yes.
As in,
there's also a hotline.
I walk to the police today. I don't feel safe. I don't want to go back home. After the police, could I go to a safe space?
The police would ensure that you get to the safe space because they must, according to the act.
So they have that authority to take you to a safe place.
That safe space is between the police and the Ministry of National Mobilization.
So and you guys are in contact with the police.
Yeah.
As you mentioned, if it happened on a weekend.
On a weekend, there's a hotline. 4210, I think, subject to correction, is the hotline number. If it's not 4210, it's 4211. So just subject to correction there. And let me further explain that the ministry's role here is that it is there to assist. It doesn't matter what the situation is. Once you reach out, the system is activated and the ministry is there to assist.
But you have to go through those
You have to go through the procedure.
When the police officer comes, you make sure that you take down the police officer badge number.
No, what I'm saying to you,
yeah.
if you're not satisfied with what is there, what is being done, and you think you're not being served the way that you ought to, one of the things that you can do to ensure is to get the badge number. That way we can find out why it is that this wasn't done or whatever, so that we can have an understanding of the situation. It's not that you're going to complain the police, for want of a better phrase, but because there's a process that must be followed, you want to ensure that that was done,
you have the right.
and that the person was given the best option for survival.
I think just in case that could be something excuse me, that you automatically, not because you expect anything to go wrong or for you not to be served properly and professionally.
But
just for record's sake,
sake,
I went to XYZ on XYZ day ABC at such time. So you can have your personal records just in case they are needed.
Let me just address something else to that Crash asked. So even though the person would go back home to the partner, the ministry still work with them,
They do.
Yeah, we still work with them. Like I said, it is a system that is in place. So we would work with the survivor, we work with the perpetrator, and we try to ensure that they understand what it is that they're getting into and how it is going to affect the long run or the outcome. All right? So it's not a situation where you're going to lock up the person. It's not, the issue here is not about trying to lock up somebody, because it is a situation that needs to be addressed. Domestic violence and gender-based violence is not something that you lock up the person and it fixes the situation, because that person coming from one relationship with a mentality, because I know some years ago you heard a person talk about, if you don't beat me, you don't love me. That was a mantra that was being bandied about. And that came from a system where persons thought that, and they would use the Bible example of sparing the rod and spoiling the child as that example. But that is not the same scenario that we are talking about. Anytime you get into a physical altercation, pain is inflicted. And you have to also be mindful that we have gone smart. So we no longer have to hit, to inflict. You know, remember long ago you used to sing sticks and stones could break my bones,
but words can do me no harm,
That's a joke.
Yeah.
Because I can psychologically damage you to the point where when I'm done with you, the next person who gets you, you're no good to them. Because they live in fear. We've gone to an age of technology where we are on our cell phones and we are constantly back and forth on social media. Social media is helping to change the mindset of a lot of our young people and also our nation. And we have to be mindful of that, because people figure, okay, I put up something because I want to put up something. So we go on TikTok and we go on YouTube and, Instagramming and doing all these things and think, okay, it's cool. It's not, because it is affecting someone's psyche. And we have to be mindful that in that phase that we are not addressing a situation of damaging Crystal. Because also, as radio hosts and announcers, you have a responsibility, and you are probably the most powerful tool that we have in this fight, in our awareness campaign. We do training workshop. We may have 50, 150. This morning, I'm talking to maybe 5,000 people just by this medium alone. So we have to realize the responsibility we have when we sit in the chair behind one of these mics, that we are providing information, that we are encouraging positive development in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Because if we fail to do that, what we're doing, we're just perpetuating the cycle that continues to say, radio announcers only want commerce. Now, Crystal could have chosen this morning to talk about gender-based violence from a commerce standpoint, because it is sexy,
It's trendy.
it's trendy from that standpoint. But this is education. This is providing you with the information that says, this is how you get help. This is what you want to do.
Basically to empower.
To empower persons. And as I said to you guys earlier on, one of the things that we have to understand, that our society has helped to get us where we are now. Feminism, and I'm not knocking it in that sense.
So we're talking a bit about the causes, or
yeah.
what
So I'm going to get to the
led up
causes
to.
that are there. Some of the root causes. So we're talking about gender inequality. All right. We are talking about the abuse of power, the disrespect of a person, another person's human rights, the basic human rights. And then we are talking about the whole issue of, we've used feminism to state that empower the woman, empower the woman, empower the woman. Change her dynamics, make her better, fix her, because she's something to be fixed. But what have we done to the men? We have forgotten that the men also needs to be worked on. We have forgotten that we need to empower men, because as I mentioned, we have our women now coming back, studying, getting the degrees, their masters, their PhDs, but they're in a relationship with somebody who doesn't want to work. He sits on the block all day, and all he does is smoke and drink. Now, these are the examples of the negatives of the block, all right? Because there are persons who are positive on the block. They get up early in the morning, they go to do their farming, and they come back and they chill on the block, cook and enjoy themselves. So the block is not all bad, because like I shared with somebody, I did some studies when I was doing my own work of whether or not there is education that is taking place on the block. And at the end of my research, there is a lot of education that happened in the block. In 2008, 2009, the Ministry of National Mobilization through the Youth Affairs Department did a research of youth on the block and find out what are some of the challenges that the youth on the block had. And one of it is that they have not had formal education in a lot of these social issues. So it is Crystal coming and saying something, but Crash come and say Crystal is a joke and whatever. And that is how the education happened. So there wasn't any formalized way of that. So going back to the whole issue of the gender-based and domestic violence, you're talking about things like sexual abuse, rape, verbal abuse, isolation, forced marriages, and all these things. They are things that we take for granted. Calling somebody stupid. We have a lot of our parents going and psychologically damaging our sons and saying, you're worthless, you're no good like your papa, and these kind of languages. And then you see the child going to school trying to survive, and you're saying, but our poor, so you have to come out of school, you have to go look for work. So society is forcing our males into a silo that is damaging the development. As a man, I'm not supposed to cry. I'm not supposed to show emotions. All right? When I do, I'm being termed a sissy or soft man and that kind of thing. Me being a gentleman, offering a lady a drink without looking for anything in return is also seen as being soft. Once I offer her something, I should look for a favor in return. 9 out of 10 times, that should be a sexual favor. And these subtle ways are what we use. You go to a party and the lady's there dancing. She's enjoying herself all by herself. And you go up to her, you want to dance with her, and she says no. And you figure she shouldn't tell you no, and an altercation ensues.
Sometimes they don't even ask.
They just jump. Yeah,
They just run up
because
behind
our
your
society
bottom.
is saying to us, once she's available and single, that's yours. You can do whatever you
When
please.
she's alone,
Yeah.
you can
And so we have to change that mindset, and we have to change the psyche that says persons need to understand the simple things that we do makes a difference. We used to pass each other and say good morning. We used to look out our window and check on our neighbor and say, hey, what's happening? If they have clothes on the line and rain is coming, we would go and take it or put it in the porch and all of that. We stopped doing that. So we have become very selfish in our society. And that selfishness is leading to other things being perpetuated. So I see you walking down the road. I'm accustomed to seeing you with your boyfriend holding hands. But I'm seeing on this day, I see you walking in front and you have teary eyes. And I don't bother to stop and say, Crystal, everything is good. Because you're afraid now that the boyfriend is going to say, oh, you talk to man. Or whatever the case is. There is a fear that is also hovering among women in wanting to share their story. There's also the issue of confidentiality. And we have to be very realistic with it.
Yep.
Since this is a 2x4, everybody knows everybody.
2x4 kind of big, 2x2.
No, mister, because not so whatever.
Okay.
You know, and everybody needs to understand that there are things that needs to happen that needs to stay within a confine. This piece of legislation holds a lot of persons responsible. We need a lot more enforcement on these legal pieces. And that would help us to continue to fight this fight that we are on where gender-based violence is concerned. In the not too distant future, the ministry is going to launch out some other programs that is hoping to raise awareness, to get persons to understand it is not okay for you to abuse anyone, man, woman, or child. Because we keep saying, oh, you need to fix this and you need to fix that. Let's get it out of our heads that the government is going to fix these things. And I'm saying that with caution. All right? When I say the government is not going to fix these things, you and I form the government of St. Vincent and the Grenadines.
So it should be we.
So it should be us doing this thing together. So as an individual, you have a responsibility to educate here on the radio. But also when you get home, you have a responsibility to look out for your neighbor, because you're going to expect that somebody's going to look out for your child. All right? And you're going to expect that somebody's going to look out for you and your best interest. Because we should be, as the Bible says, our brother's keeper.
And we stop doing that.
And we stop doing that. What we are doing now is trying to be the best us and forget that there are persons around who can assist us and help us to achieve and to become better.
With domestic violence, though, let me talk about the confidentiality part. There's a lot of people feel very ashamed when they become victims of domestic violence. And that might be one of the reasons why they are so reluctant to, one, going to the police, either going to a pastor or counselor or somebody else, Marian House, Gender Affairs, whoever they could reach out to. They might be afraid of doing that because they are afraid that their story is going to be on the streets. And Tom, Dick, and Harry, and Juliet are going to be looking at them when they walk the streets and pointing fingers and laughing, because society looks at certain things in a very probably narrow scope, and we would have touched on that. How assured can you, make us feel that whenever we come to gender affairs, or, well, you could speak for gender affairs, that our stories are going to be treated with the utmost confidentiality?
As far as I'm aware, and the practice has been, that it is held in confidence. And there are bits and pieces that you would see. So, for example, if it is that you have experienced harm and you disclose who the harm is from, the law provides us with the obligation to go and deal with that person. All right? And it is dealt with through the police, not Gender Affairs or Ministry of National Mobilization going to the person, because we do not have that legal teeth. What we have is in the network setup, the police provides that bit for us. All right? So you are held in confidence, and persons have, well, I've experienced before, persons reach out to us after I've done program like this. I remember one morning, Fugitive and I were on air doing a program, and a lady, called about her situation, something that I've never done in years, give up my cell number on air. And I gave her my cell number. As soon as I was done with the program, she called me. It was, I think at the time she was in the countryside. Then it was Richard Brown who was a superintendent at the time. And immediately after the call, I called him. I said, boss, this is the situation. Let's activate the system. In less than 5 minutes, the system was activated. Richard and his team went and they got the person. Then the ministry was involved, and that entire process worked. The Ministry of Health was involved. All of the necessary components worked for her. At the time, she was taken to a safe house. What was sad about that situation is that while at the safe space, the young lady reached back out to the perpetrator, told him where she was staying, what time the police officer would not be in the area, so he can come to visit her. And that created a problem for us, because now you understand we don't have to go and move her and change the dynamics of that. So it created that whole nexus that you then have to now think of what other measures need to be put in place. But in terms of confidentiality from a ministry standpoint, I can assure persons that from what I have experienced and from what I know is in place, that it is held in strictest of confidence. So we are encouraging persons, employing them, do not sit and suffer in your pain. Reach out and see what it is that is available to help you.
There's another reason
I think the minister is going to try to calling
Sure.
to talk. So
457-1043. That's a number to call us. If he's listening, well,
yeah,
he's
he's
obviously
he's
listening.
listening.
He wants to
Yeah,
call
so
in.
he wants to participate. I guess he wants to share
Lovely.
from a policy standpoint, because that is what he is actually.
Right.
The policy standpoint on the matter.
Okay, so while we wait on him to join us, right, there are some victims that stay in abusive relationships because they are afraid to venture out on their own because
Just give
financially.
me back the number again.
457-1043, because economically they cannot survive on their own. Is there something in place to assist those
Yes.
victims?
Again, you must come in and share the situation, because there is a setup that would help you. Because let me just give you an example of how the ministry is set up. The Ministry of National Mobilization have about 8 to 13 different departments. All right? So there's youth, there's gender, there's the family, and then the family is broken out into different segments. There's child protection, child development, diversion. So it depends on what the situation is that this would facilitate how you are assisted. If it is a situation that might be food, there is a system that can help with that. If it is providing you with a safe space, that it can be helped as well. So I don't expect persons to just get up and say, okay, I went there, I asked for this and it didn't happen. There's a process that must be followed. So I'm employing persons seek that type of assistance.
All right. Hello, good morning.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Brewster.
Good morning. Who am I speaking with? This is Crystal.
Yes, please. You're live on air. Welcome.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for having me this morning. I heard that my my media and communication officer, Mr. Jeffers, he's in studio still, or he left?
He's still here. He's still here.
Oh, good. Wonderful.
Yeah.
Yes, well, Crystal, as you're aware, and I'm happy to be calling in this morning to Extreme. We have seen a lot of folks speaking out about the whole issue of violence against women and girls here in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. And it is fitting with me as the Minister for National Mobilization, Gender, Family, to make sure that I lend my voice to your program this morning. Now, first, I want to start by offering my condolences to the families of those who were affected by the recent and senseless killings that took place here in our nation. And, as the minister with the responsibility for national mobilization et al., I must first say that we do not condone any form of violence perpetrated against our women, girls, and we are seeing a scale of violence against our youngsters as well, the boys. So we have a role to play from the ministerial level, but also as a nation and as people, we should not tolerate this scourge. It is not acceptable, Crystal, and we must speak out as a nation, and we must continue to echo our voices so that it can be heard far and wide that violence in our families, amongst our friends and our communities, we are not going to tolerate it. And as a matter of fact, one of the problems that we are seeing is that a lot of violence against our women and girls, they go on unreported. And it is not only a government issue, but it is an issue that we need all hands on deck. We cannot turn a blind eye if we know that our neighbor is in a domestic violence situation. We should not turn a blind eye. And, we must speak up in these instances, because I'm hearing a lot of stories about, with the young lady and so on. And I don't want to go into too much detail because it's an ongoing investigation. But we are hearing a lot of stories that this was an ongoing thing, that she was being beaten on numerous occasions. And what bothers me, Crystal, is that if you know that a young lady is in such situation, why don't you just pick up the same cell phone that you're on, on social media and so on, and make a report to the nearest police station? And I must say this, if you report an issue of domestic violence to the police and do not respond, they have to answer to that. And this is serious business. And, there are consequences.
Yeah.
Even for the law enforcement officers, because they should not turn a blind eye to this as well. Violence against women and girls, it's a violation of our basic human rights. And it poses serious consequences for current and also for future generation. Because if we do not stop this at some point, our next generation is going to come along and continue with the same nonsense.
I suspect it might be worse than we're experiencing right now.
There we go. So we must start somewhere. And as a father of a teenage girl, as a husband of, I cannot sit back as the minister and say nothing about this. We are making our efforts. We have various ads on the radio to speak up and to. We are doing our part from the ministry, but it is not one entity that is solely responsible for protecting our girls and our women here in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. And yes, Crystal, you have a question?
Would it be unfair to ask for more? As it concerns like the media and like urban radio stations, would it be unfair to ask for more? Because from time to time, we would reach out to Phil Call or Jemima or somebody who we know personally, we have a connection with, to talk about these things. Sometimes you would have the initiative coming from the ministry's standpoint, but is it unfair for us to ask for more coming from the ministry?
It is not unfair. If there's always room for improvement, and that is what that's one of my mantras. We are not a perfect ministry. We do not have eyes and ears in every home where there's an issue of domestic violence happening. However, we have a role to play. Once we are aware that there are issues of domestic violence, and we must work with all entities. Sometimes some of us, we may get a call in the middle of the night and about a situation, and you might say, well, it's late. Let me leave that until tomorrow morning. And by tomorrow morning, it might be a different scenario. So I talk to my staff here from time to time about the urgency, about the need to respond in a timely manner in certain situations. So there's always room for improvement. I'm not going to say that we have everything under control, but there's always room for improvement.
And I'm
You
going to
know,
hold you accountable to that.
I know that. I
I
know
was
that,
just about
Crystal.
to ask you if you have any policies that you're going to push forward.
Well, yes. Currently, we're working on a sexual offences bill. We have a domestic violence act or piece of legislation. And, in a recent meeting, I spoke with one of my members here on the division with gender to help to spread this piece of legislation around to all the clinics, the police stations, and so on and so forth. Because, there are laws on the books for issues such as this. But how knowledgeable some of our, law enforcement officers, the nurses, and so on, how to respond. We have to work with them, and I have asked my staff members to make sure that this is spread across the country. And Crystal, I may have to send you probably a copy there in studio as well. So from time to time you can update the nation as to, this piece of legislation that is on the book. Because a lot of women, I don't think that they know some of their rights. They may know a few of them, but some of their rights as it relates to the issue of domestic violence. And we have to get this message out. We have to make this message loud and clear. It cannot be coming only from the central area, but we have to spread it far and wide, even to the rural areas. And I am going to hold my division of gender affairs to this, to make sure that, a copy of this should be placed at least every area where whether it's a victim or even the perpetrator, gets in contact with even the law, the health agencies, and so on. So just to make sure that they are aware that there are existing laws that governs the whole issue of domestic violence. So that is part of spreading the message, across the nation. And Crystal, I'll be honest, it is a priority for me. I cannot sit back and take this easy. Like I said before, it's really frustrating for me, especially when we see our young people losing their lives, in such manner.
Yeah.
And my prayers are with the family, and we have a division if there's a need. Crystal, if you have time, I can tell you just quickly about.
We have about 5 minutes left in this
about
segment,
an incident that I had just a few months after coming into the ministry with a young lady who was in a similar situation of domestic violence, an abusive boyfriend, and through an anonymous friend, she asked to speak with me as a minister. And I invited them. She brought another the friend for support. And, I looked at the young lady. She's in her 20s, working, Crystal, a part of the working class. But you would not know that behind the makeup and so on, she's in this situation. And I took time with her. I spoke with her. I said to her, listen, you're a beautiful young lady. Why do you keep going back into this abusive relationship and so on? And I asked about the family and about her relationship with her mom and so on, because, you inquire about other family members, because you would want to know why naturally she's going back to that situation. And she said, well, she and her mom, they are not on speaking terms and so on. And, I dealt with this from my level, from my desk. And I asked her, I said, can you talk to your mom at least and see where things go from there? And Crystal, she did that, and the mom was ready and willing to welcome her back with open arms.
You never know. I just need to communicate.
That's the thing. Just, they may have gotten into a little, basa, as we say, but she walked out and left. And, just want to fast forward a month or so later, I got a letter, a handwritten letter from this young lady. And she said to me, Minister, I want to to thank you for taking the time out to sit with me, because the conversation we had, it changed my entire life, because she had suicidal tendencies. She said she was at that point. So sometimes I'm saying that even in our busy schedules, we need to take time out, talk to some of these folks, and see how we can pave a way forward in helping them.
Yes, sir.
And I even if it means that I have to get involved from my level to be a counselor, to be a guide, I am going to do it, because I do not like the whole issue of women and girls being abused at the hands of anyone. And let me say that.
Fortunately for you, Mr. Brewster, you had that knowledge going forward. There are some people who do not know better, who do not know how to help people. And maybe their friends or family might reach out to them for assistance and give them the wrong advice.
Well, the ministry is always available.
Ministry is available,
Yes, we have counselor. We have counselors in hand, and there are numerous programs that we are running. But we will have to, and I'm saying we will have to, take time out to deal with issues such as these, because of the importance and the urgency.
Yes, please.
So,
And it has to be consistent as well, Minister.
Definitely.
You have to go to where the people are. You got to go on the blocks. They're standing in drones at the bus stop. They're in the schools. They're on the beach. They are all over the place,
Definitely. And the
statistics
outreach
would help as well in getting to figure out how best you can go forward. Right. I know you would have some stats there. How best you can go forward. So I am looking forward to continuing having a discussion with you. But we have to wrap up right now because we have another interview coming up.
Yes,
Could I have the commitment that you will join us at some time within the next 2 weeks, Minister?
Well, I will not be in state. I'm leaving state actually on Saturday this week for just over a week.
Okay.
So I'll be back at the end of this month.
Okay.
And
this month and then next week after. So
right. So I am going to commit myself to sometime in June.
In June.
Yes.
Okay. God's willing.
God. Yes, Crystal, as usual. And I want to say thank you for being an advocate, for women and girls here in St. Vincent. I know your take on this whole matter as well, and I want to thank Extreme for giving us the opportunity to share with the nation what is happening, and to get the message across that violence against women is never acceptable, and we stand against it. And I say enough is enough.
That's right. Enough is enough. Thank you so much, Mr. Brewster. Have a wonderful day.
You too.
Safe travels, all right?
Okay, thank you, Krista.
All right. So, Phil, Carl, I'm so sorry. The time is running out, so we got to wrap up right now. Final words, how to reach the ministry, contact, Facebook,
Right, so
Instagram.
we're on social media, on the social media platform. The Ministry of National Mobilization is there. You can reach out to us via that. Again, there's a hotline that is available, 4210, and you can get direct contact with the ministry staff that is responsible for that hotline. But I also want to encourage each and every one. Let's try, and I'm saying try, to be our brothers and sisters keeper, and try to show some love at least, that we will be able to, change the mindset of somebody who is going down a path, and also that we can just have a simple conversation. We don't know what the other person is going through. And a simple conversation might mean the difference between somebody with a suicidal tendency or thought and you being willing. And Crystal, what is strange about it is that when certain persons are going through these situations, they don't necessarily need you to talk,
No,
They just want somebody to just
listen to.
talk. And I can say this, that from the ministry standpoint, we do not push our agenda on anybody. So if there's a Christian and the person is not a Christian, that issue doesn't go across. What they do, they sit and they listen and they deal with you on an individual basis. They listen to your situation and they provide you with the necessary coping mechanism and skill set that you will need to survive your situation at that point in time. But I'm also going to commit the ministry's availability for us. If you wish for us to continue this sometime next week, that we can do so, or we can set out to have a series of conversations
We'll talk.
that would make it more feasible, because I think the nation need to understand what role and responsibility they have and stop look at it from this is government responsibility, the government must do, and look at it as we need to. And once we get to that mindset, we would see changes. Because again, instead of us taking out our phone to record a situation, and I don't know if you're paying attention that a lot of school violence is being
School
recorded.
fights.
And instead of people partying, we are going for our cell phones to record.
And some of them are actually encouraging.
Yeah, we have gone that far. So we need to get back to where we are stopping the fights. It's not sensational to see people fight. I mean, you pay to see boxing and you pay to see MMA. But our local thing here, because you don't know what happens at the end of the day. And we need our generation.
We do.
We
the
need our
future, man.
generation.
We need
And
the country.
And in order for us to do that, we all must work together. So I want to thank you very much, Crash, Crystal, Lano, I hope I right, for this opportunity this morning to allow the Ministry of National Mobilization to share with the nation. And we are committed to these public outreach and campaigns to ensure that the message is sent across so that persons can be aware of what is available and how they can access these services, and be rest assured that they will be served.
All right.
That is the commitment, that they will be served. So
Great.
thank you again, Crystal.
You're welcome. Not a problem. Thank you for taking the time out. And with that, we're going to wrap up on that discussion there. Thank